How's it going, everyone? This is Mitchell Mander here, and I just want to say before I actually get into the content of this video that I'm a big fan of Pokemon Sun and Moon. I personally enjoyed the series, and I enjoyed watching it for the last 3 years. It may not be everyone's cup of tea, but I enjoyed the series a lot. Now, with every single Pokemon series, there's a handful of episodes I just don't care about for a variety of reasons. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about my top 5 least favorite Sun and Moon episodes and kind of give you guys some reasons why I just personally didn't care about these episodes or what I found were problems with the episodes. And if you disagree with this list, that's totally fine. And I just want to say I want to challenge everybody out there to give me their top 5 least favorite episodes of Sun and Moon. Or if you want to, go over the episodes I talk about in this video and maybe tell me why you enjoyed these episodes personally. Because I'm willing to change my mind on these episodes. And, go ahead and list your thoughts in the comment section down below, and I'm very interested to see what everyone has to say. And if you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe. Anyway, let's get on to the video. Number 5. Episode 95. Wellow Volcano, Graveler, Golem, and the Mountaineers. So I think it should be said that Sun and Moon's third year, or its last year, was definitely its strongest year by far. The series by this point had found its footing. It started during season 2 or year 2, and by the time we got to the last year, it was very comfortable. Not to mention the Alola League happened during the third year, and we all know how good the Alola League turned out to be. However, last year started off with a number of filler episodes that a few of them were pretty enjoyable, like the Haunted House episode, for example. And there was a few average ones like the Rotom episode and the Pikachu Valley episode. That being said, none of these episodes were truly that bad. But in my opinion, episode 95 was a bad episode and definitely the worst episode of year 3. Now, the Ultra Guardian episodes themselves are pretty hit and miss. They're good at best and average at worst. But this one's an exception, as I just find this episode to be objectively bad for a number of reasons that I'll go over right now. The first strike this episode has is the fact that the Ultra Guardians are called out to investigate weird activity going around at Wellow Volcano. But no Ultra Beasts show up at all. Excuse me? The whole point of the Ultra Guardians is to catch Ultra Beasts. That's what I thought. Send them back to their home, and there's no Ultra Beasts that show up here. It's kind of lame if you ask me. Strike 2 for this episode is the fact that the girls accomplish absolutely nothing in this episode. What they do contribute is pretty minimal at best, and that's very unfortunate. Strike 3 for this episode happens a little bit later into the episode, as Ash and the others go further into the cave. It turns out that 2 rock hunters are the reason why all this strange activity is going on at Wellow Volcano, as they are looking for spark stones and they're causing trouble. Unfortunately for them, the Alolan Geodudes and Gravelers are not happy and ends up taking them out, pretty much. This leads into one of the most ridiculous scenes in the entire Sun and Moon series. Sophocles' bride Pokemon, Matang, has a battle with Alolan Golem, and it turns into a comedic battle, where Matang is knocking off Golem's mustache and eyebrows repeatedly. And then it returns it back to it, and it has a different facial feature, and it tries to be funny each time. Now, at first, this is actually kind of funny. However, the scene drags on and it gets annoying after a while. Not only that, but the Geodudes and Gravelers are cheering on Golem, and it uses the same animation over and over and over again. It gets dragged to the point where I honestly can't stand the scene, and I just skip right through it when I rewatch the episode. Now, for the final problem I have with this episode, and it has to do with the Hiker Daves. Now, let me be clear. I like Hiker Dave a lot. It's one of the best memes that come out of the Sun and Moon games. And every time they've appeared in the anime, they're always funny. I just like how they're always photobombing everyone. Now, the problem that I have with Hiker Dave here is that while they're funny here, in the end of this episode, it has them actually befriending and catching the Alolan Golem. And this is actually pretty aggravating to me, and it was to a lot of people. And while it is nice to see them get a new Pokemon, these are minor characters. These are honestly gag characters at this point. And the problem is, it's not so much that I have a problem with Hiker Dave catching the Pokemon themselves. It's the fact that it reflects poorly on Ash's companions and friends in this series. Because at this point, besides Ash, none of Ash's friends have gotten a Pokemon since, I believe, Kiawe got Marowak, and that was all the way back in episode 34. Lana hadn't caught an Eevee yet, Mallow hadn't gotten Shaman yet, and of course Magearna hadn't showed up. I don't even think Magearna was a thing yet at this point. And Sophocles only had Charjabug and Togedemaru. And Lily, of course, only had Alolan Vulpix. So, yeah, it was very frustrating to see a minor a gag character, for that matter, get a new Pokemon, and yet our main cast hasn't gotten a new Pokemon at this point. Thank goodness that Lana got Eevee a couple episodes later. But, yeah, this actually was kind of a bit annoying that a main cast hadn't gotten a Pokemon so long, but a gag character got a new Pokemon. So yeah, I thought this episode was pretty bad, and yet, it's actually not my least favorite. Number 4. Episode 52. The Altar of the Sun. Solgaleo Descends. Now, this is an episode I don't want to be on my list of least favorite episodes of Sun and Moon, because this is an episode that had a lot of potential to be very interesting and give us a lot of information on the lore of the series. Unfortunately, this episode turned out to be one of the most boring episodes of Pokemon to date, as a lot of nothing happened in this episode. Now, the Aether Arc, or Nebby Arc as I call it, which ranges from episodes 44 to 55, is a very divisive arc in the Sun and Moon anime, as some people really hate this arc, while others really enjoy it. I'm kind of in the middle here, as there are some great episodes that I really like here. Episodes 49 through 51 are great, with episode 51 being completely fantastic, and one of my favorite episodes of Sun and Moon entirely. Spoiler alert, this is probably going to make my top 10 favorite Sun and Moon episode video. Now, it's sad to say that one of my favorite episodes of Sun and Moon is followed up by one of my least favorite episodes of Sun and Moon. Which, my first issue with this episode is the pacing of the arc comes to a complete screeching halt here. From the end of episode 48 all the way through 51, the plot just kept building up and was actually flying by pretty fast. The pacing was very fast paced, not gonna lie. The one thing that's weird here is that we go from fast pacing to just completely slow pacing, as everything just slows down here, as not a whole lot happened in this episode. There's just a lot of just wasted time here. And a lot of characters are just not doing anything. They're just sitting down at the altar just waiting. The Tapus are kind of doing their weird ceremony thing and nothing's really happening. There's some things that do happen in this episode, but there's just so much of nothing that goes on here. We don't even get that much information from the Tapus in regards to why they led Ash to Nebby. They show what they did, but yeah, we don't really get too much information here, and that's my first issue. The next issue I have is Team Rocket themselves. They are misused big time here. Now, I know there was a video floating around on YouTube about a guy ranting on this episode, and while I disagree with a few points he made in this video, one of the things I really agreed with him on was that Team Rocket was misused in this episode, as they should have only appeared for maybe a minute at most, because the additional time that we had with them was just wasted time, and the whole pre-Coughing evolution thing with James had going was kind of lame, and it really hurt things here, and it killed a lot of screen time that could have been used elsewhere, and it was just wasted on Team Rocket. And Team Rocket is great in Sun and Moon, but I hate it for the few times they're used like this. There's several times in Sun and Moon where they're just used poorly, and this is an example of it. Another thing too is that Kukui leaving to help Burnett, while a very cool scene, it takes Kukui out of the picture, and he was definitely needed for this arc, for the end of this arc, as he could have explained a lot of what's going on, given us exposition of what's going on, and definitely when Ash performed the 10 million volt Thunderbolt with the Pikachunium Z Crystal, he could have been there to explain it. and he really needed to be here, and they decided to take him out. And lastly, it bugged me that after evolving and taking the group, Solgaleo pretty much easily found Lusamine and where she was taken to. And I feel that maybe it should have taken a little bit longer. Maybe to get used to its powers a little bit more. Just give it a little bit more time, as it kind of, learned everything so fast. So yeah. Now, this is how I think the episode should have gone. The actual episode that we got should be just condensed down to just the first half of the episode. Give us more information on Solgaleo, Lunala, and Nebby, and why Ash was chosen to take care of Nebby. Reduce all the wasted screen time in the episode, where they're just waiting. Cut that down completely. Reduce Team Rocket's screen time big time. Have Kukui play a much bigger role at the end of this arc. Maybe even keep Burnett in the rescue scene. And maybe shorten that maybe a little bit and have him and Burnett accompany Ash and the others. Then dedicate the remainder of the episode to Solgaleo traveling through Ultra Space and the various Ultra Wormholes, figuring out its new abilities and trying to find Lusamine. Now, some of you might actually disagree with me on this, as you might see this as fillerish and a waste of time, but I would be totally fine with the rest of the episode having Ash and the others go through Ultra Space trying to figure out where Lusamine's at, as this would fulfill two things. First, it would be a nod to the Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon games, as in those games you travel through Ultra Space on Solgaleo Lunala, and you go through various Ultra Wormholes, and you run across Ultra Beasts and Legendaries in either Ultra Sun or Ultra Moon. And second, it would actually be a great way to foreshadow the Ultra Beasts themselves in the anime. Like, have them go through an Ultra Wormhole and they end up in one of the Ultra Beasts' homeworlds, which they didn't really show off very well in the anime, and have maybe one of the Ultra Beasts appear as a silhouette, and it sees them and it becomes interested in going through the Ultra Wormholes, and that's what leads them to showing up in Alola. They could have done this with Poipole here. Maybe let Poipole see the others, and then it becomes interested, and that's how it ends up in Alola. Now, as the episode ends, have Solgaleo fully realize its abilities, and that's when we finally end up in the world that Lusamine's in, and then we go into episode 53. And personally, I think that this would make the episode better. What do you guys think? Just let me know in the comment section down below what you think episode 52 should have been, or what should have happened in this episode, or what should have made it better. Number 3. Episode 71. Dewpinder gets Lana. Now, Lana happens to be one of my favorite characters in all of Sun and Moon. Sure, her goal isn't the best and most interesting, but it's her personality that I love, and I just like all of her interactions she has with the characters. I also like it when she one-ups Kiawe from time to time. It's always hilarious when she does that, and it makes a lot of great moments in the series. And most of her focus episodes actually are good in my opinion. However, there are two that I personally don't like at all. Episode 5 is pretty lackluster for the most part, but it does have some redeeming qualities. However, this episode has very little redeeming qualities. This episode, episode 71, is one of the worst episodes of Sun and Moon, and one of the worst character-focused episodes in the entire Pokemon series. So, why is this episode so bad? Firstly, this episode title is a complete troll, and we all hate it when Pokemon likes to troll with their episode titles. Just look at the episode where Ash lost to Alon in the Kalos League. Kalos League victory, Ash's greatest decisive battle, as a very good example. That ticked off a lot of people, and there are various other examples. And just like those episodes, this one trolled as well, as the title implied that Lana would actually catch this Dewpinder, and it seemed to make total sense. In the previews, Dewpinder was shown in love with Lana, and with the title being Dewpinder gets Lana, you would think that Lana would actually catch the Dewpinder, and it would make so much sense, as Lana has its evolved form in the games when you battle her in both Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. And yeah, it made sense, and by this point, all the other main characters desperately needed new Pokemon. Or at least one of them needed one. And especially the girls needed one because they only had one Pokemon each. So it seemed to make a lot of sense, and it seemed like all the planets were aligning that Lana would actually get Dewpinder. So everything lines up, and yet Lana doesn't catch Dewpinder. Okay, so Lana doesn't catch the Dewpinder. So how is the actual episode? So, to be completely honest, the episode actually starts out very interesting, as the Dewpinder is sent off by its mother to find a new home, and it kind of acts kind of like a documentary, as we're kind of watching an animal in its natural habitat looking for a new home as it matures and grows. And that's actually pretty cool. That's very interesting. You got an interesting thing going here. Unfortunately, this entire scene completely drags on as Dewpinder finds itself in the crazy situations, and this ends up taking up a decent portion of the episode. As a result, this scene, which is very interesting, goes from very interesting to boring very quickly, and it loses my interest fast. In fact, I skipped over a lot of this when I rewatched the episode. Now, when Dewpinder does find Lana and Ash, she has a bubble on her head, and that's from Popplio. And this is what causes Dewpinder to fall for Lana. And it literally ends up popping its own bubble and almost suffocates to death on the beach. And if it wasn't for the others hearing her, the Dewpinder, yeah, it would have died. And Lana literally jumps right in the action, saves the little guy, and takes it with her to the Pokemon school. So everything is lining up perfectly for Lana to get this Dewpinder as it leaves its home and Lana saves it. Kind of like Lana did for Popplio way back when, in episode 5. But when Lana's bubble pops, this is kind of where the episode goes downhill, as it causes Dewpinder not to recognize Lana, and it runs off. And it causes Kukui to change the school plan of the day to observing Dewpinder and what it's going to do. And yeah, Dewpinder actually finds a pond which is inhabited by a Surskit, and they have a battle, which eventually Surskit evolves and leaves, and the Dewpinder has its own territory. And that's it. That's the episode. That's literally what happened in this episode. It ended up being a complete waste of time. And the sad thing is, this episode could have actually been good. Maybe not the best in Sun and Moon, but it wouldn't have been a bad episode if Lana caught the Dewpinder. It would have made a much bigger impact if Lana caught this Dewpinder. It made so much sense. Because in the beginning, the Dewpinder is going out to find a new home. It wants to find a new place to live. And then when Lana saved it, it was all lining up. It felt like Lana was bonding with this new Pokemon. And it would have made total sense at the end of the episode for Lana to catch this Pokemon. And it could have realized after a while that it found its home with Lana, and it loves Lana, and it would have tied everything all together. But no. And if they really wanted to save the capture for a later episode, they could have done it. I remember a few people on Twitter way back when this episode aired, way back when, mentioned that we could probably revisit this Dewpinder, and maybe Lana will catch it then. And I had some hope for that. And yet it never reappeared again. And yeah, as a result, I just don't care about this episode. This episode is pretty much wasted potential, like episode 52. An episode that could have been good and could have been meaningful ended up being wasted, unfortunately. And that sucks. Number 2. Episode 56. The Strong Sleeper. Kamala's Secret. Oh boy, this episode. Oh ho ho. So, for starters, when Jigglypuff was introduced back into the show when they went back to Kanto in episode 42, I really liked it. That was actually one of my favorite gags when I was watching Pokemon way back in the day. And then in episode 43, it's revealed that Jigglypuff was on the plane back to Alola. And I was actually pretty interested in what this was going to entail. I wondered how often Jigglypuff would show up, return, and put Ash and the others to sleep. I was actually kind of looking forward to this. And unfortunately, it just doesn't really do much. It shows up from time to time in cameos, but it's mainly regulated to smaller scenes, and Jigglypuff doesn't really interact with Ash and the others ever again, besides like a few times. And that was very disappointing. However, it did get an episode pretty much dedicated to it and Kamala in episode 56. And it is probably one of the worst episodes of Pokemon, in my opinion. So where do I begin with this mess? So this episode focuses on two things. It focuses on Kamala, and Samson Oak by extension, and Jigglypuff. The first main issue I have is with Kamala. And Kamala just doesn't really have a personality. Sure, it's pretty cool that we get a backstory for Kamala and Samson Oak, and how Samson Oak came to find Kamala, and how it basically became the belle for the school. But I honestly it doesn't really have much of an impact on the series. Samson Oak is already a divisive character himself, and he was a character I liked at first, but he kind of just fell off as he kind of just became more of a gag character, and it got annoying after a while. And besides having Ultra Instinct somehow, I didn't really care for the battles it took part of in this episode, but wait a second. Why didn't Samson Oak use Kamala in the Alola League if it has Ultra Instinct? It was pretty much destroying everyone and not getting touched, so why on earth didn't you use it, Samson Oak? You could have won the Alola League. Alright, I'm getting kind of distracted here. But anyways, on to Jigglypuff. So the gang fell victim to Jigglypuff's sing again, and of course they get marked. But they find out that Jigglypuff actually didn't draw on Kamala's face. In fact, the wind somehow keeps blowing Jigglypuff away several times in this episode, by the way, and it comes running back after Kamala as it's really angry that it can't draw on it. So they all get the great idea of singing Jigglypuff's song to Kamala so it can learn it and sing it to Jigglypuff to put Jigglypuff to sleep. And man, this is by far one of the most frustrating scenes in the entire show. Just having them just sing there for like a while just got annoying after a while. And I just found myself skipping through pretty much this entire segment when rewatching the episode. And of course, each time they do this, it causes them to all fall asleep. But when Jigglypuff does sing with Kamala, it actually finally falls asleep, and that's when Kamala marks its face. Everybody wakes up to find that they don't have any markings on their face, and it's because of this reason that, Kamala marked Jigglypuff as they finally put Jigglypuff to sleep. So Jigglypuff's the only one with drawings on its face. And they end up seeing what happened through Rotom, what Rotom recorded. Jigglypuff sees itself in a bucket of water, laughs, and just leaves. It just leaves. Yeah, that was an actual episode in the series. Man, this episode was just a complete waste of time. And it just didn't really do much for anybody in the show. I didn't really care for the backstory for Kamala. I didn't really care for the Jigglypuff scenes. I felt like it was very misused and overused. Misused and overused. And this episode just disappointed me big time. I was very intrigued to see what would happen in this episode. But it just ended up being very boring and very underwhelming and just pointless at the end of the day. But that being said, the only redeeming parts of this episode that I found to be interesting was when Team Rocket was put to sleep, and then later in the episode they wake up and Bewear turns into All Might. Bewear, I swear, is the saving grace for a lot of these episodes. And then when they reference Jigglypuff from above in the Who's That Pokemon bit, that was actually kind of brilliant, as that was something that happened in the original series that was funny. And those were the only great moments in this episode. The rest, I could honestly care less about. So yeah, a pretty bad episode, and yet, it is still not my least favorite episode of Sun and Moon. Number 1. Ugh. Episode 6, The Shocking and Prickly Togedemaru. Now, this may be a controversial opinion, but I actually think that Sophocles is actually not a bad character. Now, before you mass dislike this video and tell me how wrong I am, just hear me out for just a second. I know a lot of people don't like Sophocles. They think he's annoying, think he's a brat, or just simply call him Fat Clement, and I know a lot of people did that at the start of Sun and Moon. But he's a character that actually grew a lot as the series went on. Yeah, it was gradual and it was slow at first, but he changed a lot throughout the series if you actually, pay attention to what's going on at the start and like towards the end, and just what happened in between. He starts off as a brat, but he slowly warms up to the others and he gets more friendly, because he's kind of a jerk at first. If you watch some of the early Sun and Moon episodes, he's kind of a jerk. But he warms up to the other characters, he becomes more friendly, and he actually has one of the most ambitious goals out of any character in all of Pokemon, as he wants to be an astronaut someday. That's a pretty good goal, and a very interesting one, and very ambitious. It's a big one for sure. It probably makes the most money out of everybody. And he actually gains a lot of skills as a Pokemon trainer thanks to Ash and Kiawe. However, I don't blame anyone who didn't like Sophocles at the start of Sun and Moon, as I didn't really care for him at first either, and this episode did not help at all. In fact, this is the episode that made me dislike Sophocles a lot at first. So why is this episode so bad in my opinion? Well, for starters, it has one of the most mundane and boring starts to an episode in the series. Ash is left home alone because Kukui has some research he has to take care of. So he leaves, and Ash is left alone, and he's just left alone to take care of himself, as Burnett is not in the picture at this point. And Ash has pretty much no skills of his own here that when it comes to like taking care of himself. He's very skillful in battle, but when it comes to like these type of skills, he's pretty much terrible at it. He screws up the laundry, and he can't cook, as in he makes a meal, it makes him sick, and he throws up on Pikachu. And yeah, the only interesting part here is that the dub for some reason censored this part, and I don't know why. I mean, I guess throwing up on Pikachu is just bad for kids to watch? I don't know, I thought that was strange. Anywho, this is an issue that early Sun and Moon has. It has an overabundance of slice of life, and well, slice of life, I'm fine with slice of life. It's just that in early Sun and Moon they tried too hard in certain episodes. In this one, they tried way too hard to do this. So now that Ash has no food in the fridge, him, Rotom, and Pikachu and Rowlet head off to the mall to get food. And that's when they run the Sophocles. So the first portion of this episode has nothing to do with Sophocles, who's pretty much the focus on the later part of this episode. So that's a big strike right there. Sophocles has his first focus episode, and he's not in it for like a third of it. And you would think this is where things would improve, but they don't. Sophocles is there for ice cream, and Ash simply wants some too. Team Rocket are also there selling Malasadas, and they end up accidentally setting off the alarm in the mall and all the doors shut. So, yeah. We then learn shortly afterwards that Sophocles is scared of the dark and uses Togedemaru as a nightlight. That was a thing. And it was kind of annoying, to be honest with you. It doesn't really help Sophocles at all. So, they need to find the power supply, and they go to the security and they figure out they need to go to the power supply room and turn it back on. So they have Pikachu, Togedemaru, and Rotom go through an air vent so they can get to the top of the building, while Ash and Sophocles find another way to the top. And the next scene is probably one of the most frustrating, if not the most frustrating scene to watch in Sun and Moon, as Sophocles tells Ash to go down a certain path, and he ends up sending Ash crashing into a door that's shut. And it happens several times. Yeah, this scene was very frustrating, especially after pretty much what happened in Kalos. To see this happen to Ash so soon in Sun and Moon. Just kind of get humiliated here is annoying, and he rightfully chastises Sophocles. And they get into a brief little fight here, and Sophocles, it's kind of your fault. Stop acting like a brat already. This is not helping your character at all. Anywho, Team Rocket makes it to the top, and they try to catch Pikachu, Togedemaru, and Rotom, who have also made it to the top. And because they are battling on the roof, it leads Ash and Sophocles to find the top. And they end up showing up, and pretty much they're about to defeat Team Rocket. And that's when Bewear shows up in one of the only redeeming moments in this episode, and saves Team Rocket and takes them off. They turn the power on, meet up with Kukui, and go to dinner at Mallow's place. The end. Okay, so why exactly do I think this is my least favorite episode of Sun and Moon? Well, like with episode 95 and 56, there's a lot of wasted time here. It's also very mundane at times, and there's a lot of frustrating segments here, like the beginning part of the episode, and then when Sophocles has Ash crash into multiple closed doors. It's just magnified here because it happens several times in the episode. It's not just like one segment like in episode 95 and 56. There's multiple segments that are very mundane and frustrating here. And then like with episode 71, this episode does nothing for Sophocles' character. But unlike Lana's, who's pretty much unaffected by the result of episode 71, it doesn't do anything for her character, but this episode actually hurts Sophocles' character because he comes out looking like a brat, very whiny, he's scared of the dark, he needs Togedemaru to be his nightlight. He gets into a very petty fight with Ash, which was his fault in the first place, which actually makes him look dumb since he's supposed to be this boy genius, but he screws up constantly and has Ash crash into closed doors. So this episode does nothing for Sophocles. It actually makes him a lot worse. Like if they didn't improve on his character, he would be easily the worst character in all Pokemon. He'd be worse than frickin' Tracy and Max. That's how bad he was treated in this episode. And then like with episode 54, this episode suffered from slow pacing and weird pacing and had a lot of wasted potential. And we could have actually had more time to give Sophocles better focus here. Make him smarter. Give more focus on his life. I don't know. Do something with him. What this episode did was a ton of damage to Sophocles' character, and it just didn't help him at all. Luckily, in my opinion, Sophocles' focus episodes only got better from here, starting with episode 26. And honestly, each one just got better and better. A lot of them were great, and it all came, it ended up being really good towards the end, especially with the Vikavolt race episode, the Charjabug race episode, the episode where Ash, Kiawe, and Sophocles are training in the third year. These are all great episodes that actually help Sophocles' character. And unfortunately, this episode just does nothing for him. It's actually really disappointing. Just like with the episode before with Lana, this episode ended up being a disappointment, and I just don't blame people for not liking Sophocles at first. But I would give the character a chance, as he does improve a lot after this episode. Whew. Well, that was quite a long video. Anywho, be sure to like and subscribe this video and share it around. And most importantly, I want to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section down below. I want to see your top 5 least favorite Sun and Moon episodes in the comment section down below. Maybe give me a sentence or two per episode why these episodes were your least favorite. I'm curious to see what you have to say, or what episode you pick. And if you disagree with what my picks, I'd like to see in the comment section down below why you actually think these episodes were good. I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say. Anyways, this video has gone on long enough. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will talk to you all later.